Start recording. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. And this is the webinar, bringing to you from the Infragistics. And today we are going to learn about JavaScript functions for .NET developers. What I see that the developers who are coming from .NET background, or to be very precise, coming from object-oriented programming language background, they have their own attitude towards solving a problem through programming language. We think everything in the context of object. Am I audible, guys? Can you confirm me, please? Because I see many of you are complaining that you are not able to hear my voice. So please just let me know using the Q&A panel. Great. So people who are coming from the object-oriented programming language background, they have a certain a different way of solving the problem, right? JavaScript is not an object-oriented language. JavaScript is a prototype-based language. JavaScript does not have concept of classes, but everything in JavaScript is an object. So JavaScript is very loosely typed language, and it is not an object-oriented language. So people who are coming from .NET background, they find it a bit mysterious, bit ambiguous while working with JavaScript. JavaScript arrays, JavaScript object, JavaScript operators, JavaScript. There are many different components of JavaScript programming language. One of that important concept you must be knowing is JavaScript functions, and in this webinar we are going to focus on JavaScript functions. So this is the agenda of the webinar. We are going to cover JavaScript functions. We are going to cover JavaScript scopes. We will see callback functions, because this is something I see developers are not very sure about what is callback function. Then we'll see function constructor. Great. I am presenter of the day, and my name is Dhananjay Kumar. I work as Infragistics consultant. I'm a 6 times Microsoft MVP. I'm 7 times C# Corner MVP. And you can follow me on Twitter. That is debug_mode, and we can discuss technology, etc. over there. Great. So agenda of the webinar is pretty clear, that we are going to learn about everything around JavaScript functions. So we'll be working on function as a statement, function as an expression. We'll learn return statement, about parameters in functions. We'll see how the arguments object works. Then we'll see that how nested function works, how the scopes in function works. How about this keyword in JavaScript, that function as constructor, callback function, and call and apply methods, etc. To your surprise, this is the last slide of my presentation. So I don't have any more slide. This is it. We are going to write code to understand each and everything. So we'll be writing code, and yes, this session is getting recorded. So you'll have everything available to you, the whole source code which we are talking, and presentation which does not have many slides though, and the recorded webinar as well. Great. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use Sublime Text as the text editor. And as you know, that JavaScript is a programming language which runs in the client browser. However, using Node.js and IO.js, you can run JavaScript on the server as well. I'm going to use Node.js to run my JavaScript, and as a development environment, I'm using Sublime Text. You are free to use any environment of your choice. Whatever concept we are going to learn today will hold true, regardless the environment you are working on. Like you can use Visual Studio, you can use Eclipse, you can use WebStorm, your choice. So don't get bothered about what environment I'm working on here. Great. So here you see that I have a Sublime Text, and I have a very on your screen you can see that I have a very simple one-liner JavaScript code, that is console.log. Mm, So here you see that, just give me a moment. Okay, so here you see that in Sublime text, yeah, I have configured JavaScript development environment. So whatever code I write, I can run that using Control B, and you can see in the bottom, I see the output. So here I am having the console.log, and this output is getting rendered over there. So you'll be seeing all the output of our program in the bottom of Sublime text. For some of the examples like this keyword, etc., I'll be using Visual Studio because I want to show you that how that works in the browser. So here I'm using Node.js to run my JavaScript. Great. Uh, we are starting with very first, we are going to learn a function as a statement and function as an expression. So in JavaScript, you can create a function in two different ways. You can create a function either as a statement, or you can create a function either as an expression. So if you have a code in JavaScript, something like this, function foo, or let us say I call it as function add, and let us say it has num1 and num2. Great. And then inside this, I have var result equal to num1 plus num2, and then I'll say return result, right? So this is a very simple JavaScript function. I can go ahead and use this function as var, and let us say I call it as a equal to add, and I can pass two parameters to that, 7, 6, and then I can print the result, which is a. So this is the pretty, simplest example of JavaScript function you can think of. I have created a add function, okay, and here you see that I'm creating the function from line number 2 to line number 6. Then I'm using that function in line number 8, and then printing that value in line number 9. I can go ahead and press Control B, and here you see that I'm getting the output, which is expected 30. So nothing much there. You create a function like this in almost all kind of programming language. Great. So if you create a function like this in JavaScript, this is actually function as a statement. So whenever you create a function, when the first keyword of your function is function, actually, that is function as a statement. Great. So this is the one way of creating a function. Other way of creating a function is I can go ahead and say var add equal to function. Okay, so I can go here and say that var add equal to function, add num1, num2, and then I can very much go ahead there and call that function exactly the same way I am calling that. Okay, so here you see that I have a var add function num1, num2, var result num1 plus num2. Then I'm saying var a add 7, 6, and this will work exactly fine. Here you see that when I'm creating a function, the first keyword of the function is actually var. It is not function. So in the line number 2, I'm creating a function with the keyword var, and this is known as function as an expression. Previously, what I did, I created a function simply like this, function and add, and here you see the first keyword while creating a function is actually function. So this is function as a statement. You can create a function in two different ways in JavaScript. You have these two options. Now both have different purpose, both have different behavior. Okay, so here you see on your screen right now I have a function as a statement, and I have created that function in line number 2, and I'm using that function in line number 8. If I go ahead and take this code from here, from line number 8 to line, and use it here. So what I'm doing now, actually, that I am creating a function in line number 3. However, I'm using the function in line number 1 and line number 2. Now, if I go and run this code, you see that I'm able to, I'm not getting an exception, and I'm getting the expected output. So the message here is that if you are creating a function as a statement, you can use it before it is created. So here what's happening that I'm creating a function in line number 3 and I'm using it in line number 8. Now if I go here and change this function to expression, okay, so here you see that I have var add equal to function, and this is function as an expression. And you see that you are getting an exception that you cannot use undefined. Okay, so you are getting an exception that undefined is not a function. So what is happening here is that when you create a function as an expression, you cannot use it before you created it. I repeat, if you are creating a function as a statement, you can use it before it is defined. So if it is defined in line number, if it is defined in line number 3, you can use that in line number 1. However, in function as expression, you cannot use it before it is defined. Okay, so the purpose of this webinar is not to talk about the data type in JavaScript. We are completely focusing on functions. We may do the other webinar when we talk about data type, etc. Now what's happening here is that, so this is a statement you need to remember, that if you are creating a function as a statement, you can use a function before it is defined. If you're creating a function as an expression, you can use it, you cannot use it before it is defined. And in the function as a statement, the first keyword should be the function as an expression, the first keyword is var, but in the function as a statement, the first keyword is the function. Great. So here we completed 2 things about function as a statement and function as expression. Okay, now let us focus on the return statement. The third thing we are going to talk, return statement in JavaScript function. Okay, so see that how return statement works. I'll go here, I will take this guy, say function add, okay, and then I'll put this guy here and run it, and here I'm getting the output. Great. Now you see that in this function add, in line number 5, I am returning a value. Great. If you see the languages like C# or C++ or C, you have to define the return data type. However, in JavaScript, we don't have any return data type. As I told you that it is a loosely typed language. I have a function keyword and then the name of the function. There is no return type. Great. So here right now, the return statement contains an expression which is an integer, which is getting evaluated to an integer. So we are getting integer output here. Let us go ahead and delete this line. Let us say we don't have a return statement in our JavaScript function, then what would happen? Now, if I go and run this, you see that the code which is getting, the value which is getting returned is undefined. So if you don't have return statement in your JavaScript function, then JavaScript function returns undefined value. This is scenario 1. Scenario 2 could be that you have a return statement in your JavaScript function, but it does not contain any expression. As you see right now, I have a return statement in line number 5, but it does not have any expression or any value with that. In that scenario, if we go and run this, again you see that the value it is returning is undefined. So your JavaScript function can have 3 different possibilities on the return statement. First, it will not have any return statement. If JavaScript function does not have any return statement, it returns undefined. There's one point you need to keep in mind here, that if I'm calling that function as a function and it does not have a return statement, then it returns undefined. if I use a JavaScript function as a constructor and it does not have return statement, then it returns the object which gets created by that constructor. So I'm coming to that, okay? But if you have a JavaScript function and you are using that as a function and it does not have return statement, it returns undefined. If it has a return statement but does not have any expression associated with that, it returns undefined. And of course, if you have any expression along with your return statement, then it will return the value. So here we complete the return statement, and as we see, the return statement may not have the return statement. In that case, it will return undefined, may have return statement, but without any expression. In that case also it will return undefined. And the third scenario is that may have return statement with expression, and in that scenario it will return the value of the expression. So far we have learned three things about the JavaScript function. First, function as a statement. Second, function as an expression. Third, return statement in JavaScript. Great. Next, we are going to learn parameters or arguments in JavaScript function. Okay. I'll take a break of 5 seconds over here. Let me know if you are not able to hear my voice clearly using the Q&A panel. I'm just taking a 5-second break. Great. So now next we are going to learn about parameters or arguments in JavaScript function. Okay. So again, let us go back to our code. And as I promised you in the beginning of the webinar, we don't have any slide. We don't believe in slide. We are going to write codes to understand each and every concept. Codes, and then we will be taking notes inside a notepad. And that sounds good. Okay. Now as you see that I have created a function called add, which takes two parameters, num1 and num2. And in line number 7, I'm calling that function and passing two parameters. This is great. Now I can see your question. I will answer your question in the end of the webinar. Don't worry about that. Okay, so here you see that we have two parameters. That function is expecting two parameters and we are passing two parameters. Everything is good. As I told you, JavaScript is a loosely typed language. It does not do any type checking. It does not, JavaScript functions does not do what type of parameters you are passing and what is the number of parameters you are passing. So always remember, in JavaScript functions, it does not check for the type of parameters, and also it does not check for the number of parameters. So you can pass any number of parameters. Even if your JavaScript function is expecting two parameters, you can pass more than two parameters. You can pass less than two parameters. Okay. So here I'll go and say that, hey, I'm passing one more parameter, and you see that right now inside the add function, I'm passing three parameters. Now if I go and run it, you see that I'm getting the expected output, which is 13. So what function is doing, it is ignoring the third parameter. It is ignoring the extra parameter which I'm passing. Okay, I can go ahead and pass less number of parameters. As you see that right now my function is expecting two number of parameters, but I'm passing only one. And in that scenario, when I run this, I'm getting NaN, which is not a number. Not a number is a number, is a value. It denotes the value, not a number. So what is happening in this scenario, that when I'm not passing the second parameter, the value of num2 is going as undefined. If I go here and bring the value of num2 here, and as you see, that value of num2 is undefined. So what is happening actually, that here For the result, JavaScript is trying to do 7 plus undefined, and any arithmetic operation with undefined gives you result in the end. So when you don't pass the required number of parameters, what happens that JavaScript does not complain about that. You don't get any compile time error, and JavaScript pass the undefined value. Okay, so how to deal with this? Let us say you need to work with a JavaScript function where you want your user of your functions should pass exact number of parameters. If they are not passing exact number of parameters, they should get some exception. Great. So here you see that I'll go here and say that, hey, pass one more parameter. Everything is fine. I'm passing one extra parameter 56. In JavaScript, along with your parameters, JavaScript function also contains an array-like object called arguments object. So we call that object as, along with parameters, it has something called arguments object. Keep in mind that this is an array-like object, but this is not an array. Okay, so I will go here and I'll print the value console.log arguments.length. Okay, so you see that what I'm doing here, inside the function I'm printing on the console value of arguments.length. In JavaScript, along with your parameters, an extra array-like object gets passed called arguments. So here now I go and run this program. You can see that you are getting the length of arguments as 3. You are getting that value 3 because here you are passing 3 parameters. Okay, so if you pass more parameters, let us say you are passing 7, 8 parameters. Now if you go and run, you see that the value of arguments.length is 7. So arguments object actually contains all the parameters which is being passed to the JavaScript function. I can go here and instead of this num1, I can say arguments 0 plus num2 as well. So what's happening is that this 7 is going to argument 0, 8 would go to arguments 1, 56 will go to argument 2, and so on. So if I go and run, I'm getting the expected output. Okay, if I want to work with, let us say that third extra parameter, which is 56, I can work with that here. Console.log arguments 0, 1, 2. If I go here and you see that you are getting the output here 56. Okay, keep in mind that even though we are accessing the values of arguments, values inside the arguments array using the indexes, arguments is not an array. So if I go ahead here and try to perform some array operations, like let us say arguments dot push, or I want to push some value here 78, and now if I go and run this, you see that I'm getting the exception over here. The exception is here that arguments.push78 is giving me exception because the message over here is that arguments object does not contain the method push. So this is very important message you need to keep in mind, that arguments object is an array type object. It is not an array. You can access the values of that object using the indexes, like I saw you shown you 0, 1, 2 indexes. You have the length property, but you don't have other methods like push, pop, etc. available to arguments. Now, if you want to create a function which does not take either less number of parameters or more number of parameters, in that scenario, what you can do, we can very much go here and say if arguments.length is not equal to 2, we can just say throw exception, right? And if it is so throw exception and then where result argument 0 num2 return result, and everything's fine. So here I'm getting the I'm getting the exception over there. I guess there's some syntax mistake. Okay, so I go here and say throw error, and this error can be pass exactly two parameters. So new error, I guess. Okay, so in this way you can make sure that your user is not able to use your function without passing exact number of parameters. Now if I go and pass two parameters, everything is fine and I'm getting the expected output. So just to summarize, arguments object is very important. It is an array-like object. You can put the validation on your function by using arguments.length. And I see in the Q&A panel, some of you is asking the question that how I can have a function overloading in JavaScript. As you see, JavaScript is loosely typed language, and it really does not restrict you that what should be the type of parameters or arguments you are passing, what should be the number of parameters or arguments you are passing. You really don't have need of method overloading, right? I mean, you create a function, it is overloaded by the nature, right? Great. Let us now move to our next topic, and that is scopes in JavaScript, which is very important. Okay, so in JavaScript you have three kind of scopes. If you are coming from C# background, I'll just take a stop here for 5 seconds. You please let me know whether you are able to hear my voice clearly or not. Okay, guys, so let us move to scopes in JavaScript functions. Can you just confirm me whether my voice is audible or not? Thank you everyone. Okay, so now we are moving to scopes in JavaScript functions. So there are three kinds of scopes in JavaScript. And if you're coming from the C# background, in C# you have function level scoping, you have global scoping, and you have a statement level scoping as well. If you have seen the for each statement in C#, you see that if you have some code like for each integer I equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus, the scope of lifetime of that variable I is inside that for each statement. So in the languages like C#, you have a statement level scoping as well. However, in JavaScript, you don't have a statement level scoping. You have function level scoping. You have global scoping, and you have lexical scoping. So you have here three kind of scoping. Those are global, function, and lexical. Scoping is very important in JavaScript, and let us see how we can work with that. Okay. So let me go ahead here, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a function called foo Okay, and inside this function I have a variable called var myvar equal to bar. Okay, and what I'm saying console.log myvar, and then I can call this function over here foo, and if I print, it's expected and I'm going to get bar as an output. Great. I can very much go ahead and take this line from here and print that here. Now what would happen? I'll get undefined. Exactly the same concept you remember, that when we created function as an expression, and when you create function as an expression, you use var keyword to create that. We were not able to call that function before we created that. So what is happening over here? Here you see that I created a variable inside the function in the line number 4. If I am using that in line number 3, I'm getting the value undefined. So what actually happens here is that what JavaScript does, that when you create a variable, it does not matter inside the function in which line you create that variable. Under the hood, JavaScript does this for you on the top of your function scope. So we have a variable in the line number 5, var myvar. What JavaScript does, it does something like this for us in the top. Sorry, in the top of your function scope. So what is happening is that we have created a variable in the line number 6, but JavaScript under the hood is declaring that in the top, which is line number 3, and then setting the value as undefined. So when we are printing that value, before we set the value over there, we are getting the value undefined. If I go here and instead of this undefined, if I put some value here, let us say Jew, and if I run now, I get the output Jew, which is expected, because what is happening, even though I have created a variable in line number 6 that is being hoisted on the top of the function scope, and we are setting the value in line number 4, and then printing that in line number 5, which is Jew. When I go here and again print this value over here, line number 7, now the value would be bar, because again we have reassigned that value. So the message over here is that if you create a variable as an expression, does not matter where you are creating that inside the function, always JavaScript hoists that on the top of your function scope with a value undefined. Okay. Great. Now what I'm going to do here, that I have a function foo. Inside this function I have this myvar Jew variable, myvar bar console.log myvar. What I'm going to do here, that I'll go and declare a variable called global var, and I'll give some value to that, let us say 2. Okay, I can very much come here and print this value global var and run it. You see that right now I am since the global var is in the global scope, I'm able to access that outside the function anywhere, and I can very much access this particular variable inside the function as well. So now when I run, I'm expecting the output for the line number 7 bar, for the line number 8 2, and for the line number 11 2. So my output should be is 2, then bar, and then 2, which is expected. So the message here is that if you have some variable defined globally, you can access that inside the nested function, inside the any function under the global scope. Okay. Now there's a catch over here. Okay. What I'm going to do, I'm going to give the same name to the global variable as I have given that inside the function scope. So what is happening here is that I have two variables. One variable I am creating that in line number 1, which is in the global scope. Then I am redeclaring that variable inside the function foo. Okay, and assigning that some value called bar. Now what would happen here is that I'm printing this. Okay, so what will happen here, that inside the function foo, JavaScript will recreate this variable myVar. Okay, it will not take myVar as the global variable. So since we have one global variable and one local variable in the function scope, JavaScript will give priority to the local variable which is in the function scope. And for the line number 5, you'll get the output bar, whereas for the line number 9 we'll get the output 2. So when I go and run this, you see that I'll go here and put this guy over here. If you go and see now, you see that for the line inside this function foo, I have the value of myVar as bar, which is over here. However, outside this function, this global variable myVar is into the existence, and I'm getting the output as the 2. So what I'm trying to explain you that if you have a global variable, that you can work with that throughout scope of your program. If you have a variable which is in the global scope and you have recreated that variable inside a function scope or the block scope, what would happen is that your function inside that function, the variable which is created inside that function will have the priority over the global variable, which is the output over here. Okay. So the how to access global var inside the function, this is a very good question, right? The thumb rule is that don't give the same name, right? So if I want to have a global variable, I'll call it is myvar1 and I'll call this as myvar2. So this is myvar2 and I can access the global variable with myvar1, right? And here myvar1. So you see now I'm able to access the global variable myvar1 inside the function over here. Okay. Another thing is that someone is asking a very good question. They are saying that if I have the same variable myvar and here also myvar, okay, what I'm going to do here right now, since I have using the var, I'm recreating this myvar. So this bar having the value of myvar would be the bar inside the function foo and 2 outside this function. But however, if I remove this var from here, what I'm doing, I'm working with the same global variable and reassigning the value bar. So if I go and run, now you see that I have reassigned the value bar and now everywhere the value of myvar has been changed. So this is pretty simple. Okay, so this is all about the scoping in JavaScript. The third global scope and function scope we just saw, the third kind of scoping is the lexical scoping, which is pretty simple. In JavaScript, you can have a function inside a function or the nested, it is with the nested function. So what I can go do here is that, let us say I have a function foo here. Inside this function, I can have a function coo. Okay, and this function will have a, let us say a variable called t equal to some value moo. Okay, so I'm saying that console.log t, great, and we are calling coo over here. Okay, then I have a variable myvar. So what I can do inside the function coo is the nested function of foo. I can access the variable which is of the external function. Okay, so here I'll come here and say console.log myvar. Okay, and now if I go and run this, you see that I'm getting the output. So the message here is that you can have a function inside a function, okay, and you can the nested function can access all the variable of the parent function. However, the parent function cannot access the variable of the nested function. So if I go here and say console.log t in the parent function and run it, I'm going to get the exception because parent function does not have information about the variable of the child function, and this is known as the lexical function, lexical scoping. Great. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you something very interesting, which is the callback function in JavaScript. So I see many of you are asking the question in the Q&A panel that how we can pass a function as an argument and how to deal with that. So the answer of that is the callback function. Okay. So what's happening here is that in JavaScript, keep in mind that function is an object. Okay. Function is an object. You can use a function as expression. You can assign a function to a variable. You can return a function return a function from a function. You can pass a function as an argument. So since function as an object, you can do all lot of things. You can pass a function as a variable. You can assign a function to a variable. You can pass a function as an argument to another function. You can return a function as from another function, etc. So let us see that how we work with this. Okay. So let us say that okay, so what I'm going to do here, I have a function foo, which is taking two parameters, param1 and let us say param2, and then it takes third parameter called cb. I'm explaining you what is the callback function here. Okay, let me get rid of everything over here. Yes, so this is normal function foo, which has three parameters, param1, param2 and c. Okay, what I'm doing here is that I'm saying var result equal, sorry, what I'm saying, var result equal to param1 plus param2. Okay, and then we are saying console.log result, and then of course I can call this function from here 7 8, right, and then we print we can get the output over here. Okay, so this is good. Now let us say that there is a requirement that when you have this value result, pass this value to other function, right? So let us say you want to call another function inside this function, and let us say that function is cb, which we are passing over here. Okay, and then you pass this parameter result over there. So what I am doing here, I have three parameters, two normal parameters, and then one callback function. What callback function does is that the callback function we call inside another function. Okay, so here what I'm doing, I have a function foo, param1, param2, cb, and then I'm calling a cb result. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, that I'm going to create one more function here. Let us say I'm calling that as a callback function that takes a result as a parameter. Okay, and inside this I'm saying console.log, okay, result plus in the callback function. So what actually happening here is that we have a main function called foo. Inside this we are evaluating, we are doing something. Okay, and once that job is done, inside that function we are calling another function called cb and passing the result which we evaluated over here. And that function, some function is written here, okay, which takes different value for this result, right? Now what I can do, when I call this foo, I can pass this callback function as a third parameter. So now you see that to call the foo, I'm passing per 7 and 8, which is going to param1 and param2, and then I'm passing a function called callback function, and that function takes a parameter. And inside the body of the foo, we are again executing that function. So now when I go and run it, you see that I'm getting the output 15 in the callback function. So what is happening actually is that in the main function, we are evaluating some value, calculating some value, and then once the result is with us, we are calling the another function. So that is called callback function inside the body of the main function. Okay, so this is the callback function. The other way to use this is that rather than creating a function like this, if you have created like this, you can reuse it. You might have seen many a times something like this called function, anonymous function. Okay, and that takes a result. Okay, and you might have seen something like this in many code. So if you have seen any jQuery code, you see that you pass a function as a parameter here, right? Now if I go and run, I'm getting the output. Okay, so the best example of callback functions are very fast. If you want to reuse some functions, right? You want to reuse some functions and you want to pass them as a parameter and return them. That is one of the example. Another example that when you do a JAX call, right? So you don't want to block the main function. You have made a call to external file system or external web service using the JAX, etc. What you want that when result is returned, you want to assign that the result to some other callback function and print that and do whatever you want to do with that and proceed with the main function. Okay, question is that what is the multiple what is the problem if we have the multiple callback? So we call that as a callback hell problem, and the answer of that is the promises, which we are not covering in today's webinar, but trust me, we have each month 2 webinars for you and we'll cover all these topics. Great. Okay, now the problem is that as you see that user can pass any parameter, right? Like here I'm having 7, 8, and instead of the function in the JavaScript does not do any type checking. If user is passing another parameter 7, or if user is not passing any value, so what would happen in this case? You'll get an exception, right? The exception is that undefined is not a function, because for the third parameter CB, undefined is getting passed. So remember from our parameter section. So how to deal with that? You can deal that like this. If CB is, you can say if CB is not equal to undefined, then only you want to call the function. So in this way, you will make sure that you are calling the function only when user is passing some value as a third parameter. You see that that function is not getting called. If I pass a third parameter, that is callback function, then only that callback function would be called. Right. Now what could happen that, okay, you are not, instead of function, what if you are passing some other value like 45 or something? Again, you will get an exception here, is that you are getting the exception is that number is not a function, right? So how you can again restrict that? So when you create a function with a callback, you can then say type of CB is equal to function. Here we are. Okay, so now if I go and do run, you see that since we are not passing, it's not showing the exception, it's not calling that callback function. But if I use this callback function over here, now it will work with that. So this is all about the callback. It is all about the callback function. Okay, so we have done with the callback function. Next, let us move to function as constructor. Okay, so let us move to function as a constructor. Then we will move to this keyword. Okay. Okay, so to start with, let's understand that in JavaScript, everything is an object, okay? Even function is an object. Function is also an object. So in JavaScript, if you want to create a new object, you don't have any class. You create an object from a prototype or from a function. So let us say if you have a function and you want to create an object or you want to use that particular function as a constructor, how you can do that, okay? So let us say we have a function here. I'll go here and I have a function called rectangle, which takes two parameters, height and width, okay? And here I'm saying this dot height equal to height and this dot width equal to width, and then this contains another, this dot area equal to, this is a function, okay? And I'm saying return this dot height and this dot width, okay? Now what we can do, so this is a normal function, right? We can use this function as an object, as a constructor to create an object using the new operator. So we can go ahead and say rec1 equal to new rectangle. So whenever you use a function after the new keyword, I repeat, whenever you use a function after the new keyword, that function work as a constructor. Here I can pass parameters 45 and 6, and then I can say rec1 var rec1 area equal to rec1 dot area, and it will return us the area, okay? And then we can say console.log rec1 area. So what we are doing here, we are using a function as a constructor, and you see that we are getting the output. We are using the function as a constructor. And so to use a function as a constructor, what you need to do, you need to use the function after the new keyword. What it will do in this case, now you notice here that this function does not return any, does not have any return statement. And as I told you in the beginning that if you don't have any return statement in the function, and if you use that function as a constructor, that function returns the object which it has created. So if you use a function as constructor, then function returns the created object, okay? And you can use, if you use a function with the new keyword, then function acts as constructor, right? So here we are using this function rectangle with the new keyword, so it is acting as a constructor, and it is returning an object which we are assigning in rec1, and then we are using that. In this way, we can go ahead and create more object. I can go ahead and say rec1, rec2, rec2 dot area, okay, and then this is rec2, and we can go ahead and print this, give some other value, and if we run now, you see that we have now two objects, rec1 and rec2. We created using the rectangle function, which is actually using as a constructor, and this is also known as constructor pattern. Okay, great. So we just saw about how we can use a function as a constructor. Now let us move ahead and let me show you that how this statement works, and then I'll again come back here and show you something. So here I have in my browser I have a code here, okay? So this is a normal, I'm going to run code in my browser here. So you see that I have a HTML file here, and that is referring to index.js. In the index.js, I don't have anything as of now, okay? Now what I'm going to do, in the browser, what I'm doing, I'm saying if this is equal to window, then what you do, you alert me window, else what you do, you alert me not window. Okay, so when you run your JavaScript in the client browser, this keyword actually represents for Windows. So if I go and run this now, okay, so if I go and run this, you see that right now that this keyword actually representing the window. Okay, so what is this keyword? Try to understand. This keyword is always the object on which we call the function. If we have not explicitly defined the object on which we are calling the function, in the browser, this keyword represents the window. Okay, if you call it using an object, it will not represent. It will if I'm sorry. If you running your JavaScript code in the browser in the strict mode, in that scenario, that this keyword will not represent window, and it will represent the value undefined. So just to show you what I'm going to do, here I have a function foo. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is that in my code, I'm getting rid of this. You see that I have a function foo which is returning this. What I'm doing, I'm saying that var a equal to foo, and then I'm alerting the foo value. Okay, so let me go ahead here again and run it. You see that the function foo is returning this. So when I'm returning this from the function foo, actually this is returning the object window which I'm alerting over here. And you can see that in the output here that it is returning the object window. Okay, but if I go ahead and in my code and I'll say that, hey, run this in the strict mode. Okay, so now what I'm doing, I'm running my JavaScript in the strict mode, and I'll again go ahead and run this. You see now in the strict mode that this keyword in the browser returns undefined. Okay, so always remember that this keyword represents the object on which you are calling the function. Okay, so here if I go again and let us say instead of this var foo, I can call it as window.foo. Okay, now you see that I'm calling that function foo on the window. In that scenario, now this will represent the window. If I come back here again and run this guy once again, you see now you are getting again the object window. So keep in mind, people, you get confused at what is this. This is always the object which is calling your function. Okay, so if I go ahead here, so what is happening is that this rectangle is always, but this inside this rectangle is your current object. So what we are doing, we are assigning property to the current object, height, width, value, and then this dot area. And in this way, you can work with the constructor pattern. So guys, I guess we are done for the today. We see that we have already crossed 5 minutes extra, but we have covered. I'm going to you're going to see the Q&A panel, but we have covered many topics here. We saw function as a statement, function as expression, return statement, parameters, arguments, nested functions, scopes, this keyword, function as constructor, callback function. We have not seen the call and apply because we are running out of time. But trust me, we'll write on the blog post on the same. Also keep in mind that since you are attending today's webinar, we welcome all of you to take advantage of our 30 days trial by downloading our products at infragistics.com/products/ultimate/download. This is the old thing, but you can send any query to sales india@infragistics.com. Also, here I leave you with my credential. You can send me mail on debugmode@outlook.com. If you have any query regarding the webinar, if you are on Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter, that is debug_mode. So guys, thank you so much. Now I'm switching to Q&A panel, and I'll try to answer questions. And once again, thank you so much for joining the webinar. And and we are very much aspire to do mini webinars for you in India time zone, in which we will be helping you to learn all these technologies. Sometime basics like these, or sometime covering the latest of the technologies as well. So once again, thank you so much for joining today's webinar.